jungle. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this spoiler review for the first 2 episodes of Willow, the series from the
Geek
Buddies.
All right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Wait, is that the theme song?
That is the score. That is the score.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, we are going on our own wagon train through this series here, starting with the first 2 episodes. We're going to jump into it, break it all down here. This, this nostalgic series coming back. People loved that first Willow movie. There was never a sequel. But now we're getting it here in series form from Jonathan Kasdan, of course, the son of Lawrence Kasdan. Here, we're going to break it all down. I am the outlaw John Rocha, and joined by these 2 wonderful gentlemen.
I am Michael Vogel, a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you may have seen me on Silicon Valley, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and 911.
Absolutely. And, of course, big thanks to Carbon Health, who continues to power and sponsor us here on the Geek Buddies. Go to carbonhealth.com to get yourself checked out today or get some virtual care for sure, or download that app to have a doc in your pocket on the go, especially if you're on a quest to face the crone. You're going to need some Carbon Health with you for sure. But
you're going to go across the shattered sea to Immemorial City. You'd get yourself checked out first.
Where the maps all end, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get into it. And this is a spoiler review. So we had the first 2 episodes drop for us to watch here. So Michael Vogel, as the resident, probably more hardcore Willow fan of the 3 of us, please take it away. Your thoughts on these first 2 episodes.
I mean, look, I think as far as like what Willow was, this is just a great follow-up because it kind of is all the good and all the bad that you got in Willow. I mean, Willow, when it came out, was kind of a hodgepodge. It was a little bit of Star Wars, a little bit of Lord of the Rings. You threw it all in the blender. You saw what came out. It was a little bit cheesier than the bigger things that were out there, like Star Wars at the time. And so now we've got a series on DisneyPlus, and it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and it's even a hodgepodge of like the Star Wars new trilogy. Like they've taken a lot of cues from episodes 7, 8, and 9, particularly from Force Awakens, and it's a little bit cheesier than the Star Wars stuff that we're getting. But I gotta tell you, as a Willow fan, cheesiness aside, I had an absolute blast watching this. I am such a nerd. I'm such a nerd for the Willow mythology. And so seeing what they're setting up and how they're doing it, despite like, I am 1,000% sure that when Shannon talks about how the action sequences are not great and how a lot of the acting is questionable, I will be like, yeah, you're probably right. And when you say, yeah, I didn't really care about this, it was like not really established that well, I'll be like, yeah, you're not wrong. And I still had a great time, and I loved it, and I can't wait till next week to see what happens next.
This guy launching salvos already to undercut our criticisms. I respect it. Good opening statement. Shannon, your thoughts here as we've finished the first 2 episodes of Willow here, called The Gales and the High Aldwin. Your thoughts?
Well, Vogel had a good time. I had a time. It was sort of a shifting adjective. You know what? Leading up to this, because, growing up in the 80s, like I did watch Willow. I liked Willow. I believe we owned it on VHS. But it was also one of those movies that, with the advent of DVD and special features, it was not one that I went back to. And it wasn't because I don't like it, I grew out of it. I just didn't go back to it. And so the amount of friends who have texted me leading up to this to be like, hey man, I watched Willow to get ready for the series. Wow, it is bad. And it's like, well, I mean, it's a product of its time. And watching the series, like I was excited. I was kind of like, hopefully this will be fun. And there are fun aspects to it. There is a little bit of fun to be had. I do think some of the casting choices from a trio of casting choices, they're not quite getting there for me. And the action, like this is a smaller scale this is a smaller scale show. So we're not going to get those big epic action sequences. Maybe we're going to get one closer to the finale. I do think from a production design standpoint, like there are some interesting choices. I thought some of like the Gales, I'm like, okay, there's some okay stuff here. But unfortunately, I feel like the show kind of slows down a little bit in quality when we get more of Warwick Davis, because by all accounts, he is a lovely man in real life. Like we have a mutual friend, and mutual friends just thinks the world of him.
Look at this guy. Just dropping his George Lucas friendship like it's no big deal. Look at this guy. Good, yeah.
Me and Jorge. But unfortunately, Warwick Davis is just not that strong an actor. And so when you get some of his scenes where he's really trying to make kind of an emotional connection, it just kind of reads as reciting lines versus actually having a conversation. That being said, I'm not quite as enthusiastic as Vogel. We're gonna get to the end of this.
We're gonna muddle through.
We might be pulling each other to the finish line. We're gonna get to the end.
We're on our own quest to try to get to the end of this. Yeah, I will say this: a mixed bag for sure. I think I might have aged out of this one. I never was a big Willow fan for me personally, but watching this, I'm watching. I want to, like with Wednesday, you're seeing young adult stuff that really, really works for me. Of course, it's a different approach, different universe, different world, what have you. But Michael might have hit it on the head. This is exactly what Willow was. So if you like that Willow movie, it basically keeps going with that feeling, that sense of kind of different approaches and mismatch of different themes and concepts and feelings and vibes overall. I see your points on the Warwick Davis stuff. I think for me, it's more about some of the writing and some of the let's be funny, and it doesn't quite 100% work for me. But I think I like the actors. For the most part, I do enjoy most of the main actors there, and there is a little bit of mystery here that I'm like, okay, what does this all mean? I have some concerns, but it may be my concerns will be addressed in future episodes. And when you look at it as a whole, it was being done that way on purpose so that you would feel a certain way about certain things. But these are the things that I wonder about. I don't know necessarily that I feel the magic, but I did enjoy some of the scenes. It just feels a bit uneven. And I think they unintentionally, to me, the first two episodes I would sum up to Dove or Broomhilda or Allura trying to bring magic out of the ground. That's what it feels like this series is. They're trying to bring magic out of the ground. And by the end of that second episode, something happens. So you're like, okay, so maybe we'll see if a little bit of magic comes out over the next few episodes as we watch this. So, go ahead, Mike. You want one more thing?
No, I was going to say, I mean, I think because we talk about this a lot, like we compare like the shows that we have now, like the Star Wars shows, the Marvel shows, Rings of Power. Like we talk about this all the time, how spoiled we are as geeks. And we talk about CW shows, which is what we had for a long time.
Yeah.
And this is like, this exists somewhere in that in-between.
Yeah.
It's more than a CW show, for sure. Like, it's got definitely a bigger budget. It's got a lot more going on, but it's not quite at the level. Like I was saying the other night, this is like Willow, the YA novel.
Yeah.
And like a YA novel, like if you're a fan of YA novels, as I am, a YA novel is not the great American novel. Like there's sometimes you read a book and you're like, this book really changed my life. And sometimes you read a YA novel and you're like, got a soft spot for this one. It's a little cheesy, but I love it. And this is definitely following in that, it's a little cheesy, but I love it, category for me. Because I could talk for hours about stuff from the original movie. And like Shannon said, like our family was a family, we watched Willow all the time. Like we wore that VHS out. Like understood that it wasn't on the level of Star Wars. And especially when you watch that original Willow, you're like, so farmer who wants to leave his farm meets a rogue, has to go rescue a princess from an evil guy in a skull mask. You're like, this is kind of like Star Wars light. Yeah. And so you knew that even as a kid, but there's just still something about it that just gets me.
Yeah, fair enough. And beyond the shattered sea of the CW, there is something there in the middle. So that's where we're maybe there.
Beyond the shattered sea of the CW. I want that on a t-shirt.
The shattered CW. But yeah, so let's get into it. We're going to talk about these storylines here. I mean, we've got the family of Sorsha, Queen Sorsha. Great to see Joanne and Whalley Kilmer coming back. Of course, Val Kilmer that's where they met each other, was on Willow, and ended up getting married for real in real life. Of course, we know the deal with Val Kilmer. So we hear about Madmartigan as this person who was sent on a mission and by the Queen later on. And so that's why we kind of haven't seen him. But we meet her children here. We meet Kit, we meet Eric, and these are interesting characters. They both have their approach to life. She's, of course, the standard woman who doesn't want to be told what to do and wants to break out from the norms. We've seen that cliche and that trope many, many times in recent series, certainly. And then we see Eric, who's kind of a Lothario, as well as being a swordsman and what have you, making out with Dove and the girl from the kitchen who makes these magic muffins or whatever. So we get to we're introduced to them, and certainly Kit wants to do something. And she's got this friend Jade, who is played by Erin Kellyman, who's fantastic. Great to see her in another Disney project. They have a really strong connection. You sense there's something more, and then when Jade wants to leave and go be a knight, we see that come forward when Kit's the one that says, no, I'm going to leave. You think you're going to leave? No, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to kiss you and let you know how I feel about you. But before any of that can happen, Eric is taken by the Gales, and this becomes the quest of the second episode of them going on the quest to try to find out where Eric is. They meet Willow in the first episode because the Queen Sorcerer says they need a sorcerer and all of this. And we get to meet the world. We get to see the world of Willow. He is a sorcerer. And in the second episode, we get to see the issues that are going on between Sorsha and Willow from the past that are bleeding into the future. We find out that Dove is a Laura Dannon, and then Willow is teaching her the magic. Oh, yeah, and there's Tony Revolori and all this kind of stuff. So let's deal, though, with the storyline of the children and Sorsha and even Willow a little bit. Mike, what are your thoughts here? Are they laying out a good kind of dynamic here with conflicts, with issues, with their own personal desires to get stuff done or get their own needs met in this situation? We're seeing friction between Kit and Alora for sure. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, like, first of all, I mean, like I was saying, like, this takes its cues from Force Awakens in a lot of ways, and one of those ways is that it's much more of like a legacy sequel. Like, even though Willow is there and he's a big character and Sorsha plays a major part, and the events of the first movie are very important. This is a new cast of characters. So meeting Madmartigan's kids, meeting Jade, meeting Dove kind of right off the bat, you're like, okay, well, these are the characters that we're going to be dealing with. Like, this is what the world is. I think it's really interesting what they did. I mean, like, taking a step back, the first Willow movie is all about Queen Bavmorda knowing that there's this prophecy about this child that's going to overthrow her and trying to get in front of the prophecy by finding this baby and killing it. And all she really does is just make a Laura Dannon get rid of her sooner. Like, the prophecy is the prophecy. You can't argue prophecy. And here you set up a movie where Willow had a prophecy, and everyone's trying to get in front of it and make sure it doesn't happen, which we've already seen in the first movie doesn't work that well. So we know, and when you get into the second episode, you find out that Willow wanted to train a Laura Dannon, get everyone ready, like there's a big thing happening, and Sorsha was like, no, how about we just block ourselves off from the world, get rid of all magic, and hide a Laura Dannon away, and that'll be better. Spoiler alert, that's probably not better. But I think that's a really nice backdrop to set up all these characters. The idea that, Laura Dannon is basically Briar Rose in Sleeping Beauty, like she's the royalty who's hiding and doesn't know who she is. And then Madmartigan's kids, I mean, Sorsha and Madmartigan's kids, but very much like vibing on, you've got Eric, who's named after one of the characters in the first movie, who is the sort of got the romantic charmer side of Val Kilmer's Madmartigan. And then you've got Kit, who's like the badass swordsman with Wanderlust. And I think that there's really interesting dynamics here. I think most importantly, Willow is showing you how to have a gay relationship in something that's not two people kissing in the background for 2 seconds. Like, there's a legacy character. It's the daughter of Madmartigan. She's in love with Jade. They get in front of that right away. It's a big plot point of the show. Their romance is something that we're probably going to see like carry through this whole series. And so as gay fantasy nerd, I'm just thrilled that we actually have like a main gay character in something finally, because that's pretty awesome. So I like all these dynamics. I like that Sorsha is kind of anti-magic, and that she and Willow have had this falling out, because I think that just kind of, it sets everybody up on a more interesting path. I don't disagree that some of the writing is a little bit clunky, for sure, in this show. So execution maybe leaves a little bit to be desired. But as far as like the broad strokes of having all of these characters and kind of knowing right away where each character stands as far as what they want, who they're interested in, who they relate to, how they feel about Elora Danan, they do a really good job of laying all of that out in these first 2 episodes, so that moving forward, we get to just see these character dynamics play out.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on the story here with these characters, Shannon, with the connections and the of Sorsha and Mad Mardigan's kids and their kind of sibling rivalry, so to speak, but then how it bleeds out into Dove, bleeds out into Jade, brings Willow into the mix here. Borman, who we find out was the squire of Mad Mardigan, is a part of this fellowship of the Eric that they're going to go get him and all of this. And it progresses in through the second episode where Willow comes along, encouraged by his daughter, and now he's trying to train Elora again. And we see flashbacks, as Michael mentioned, with Willow also giving up on her and not wanting to be around and saying, I don't care about her. I don't care about you anymore because you've insulted me and I only care about my people and we're going underground. So what do you think about how they set up these relationships between all these main characters over the first 2 episodes?
I mean, I think from a writing standpoint, dialogue notwithstanding,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a solid setup. Like it's very much just have to. Here's what we have to establish is that in the wake of Bavmorda being defeated, Tir Asleen, which was a cursed kingdom, now it's got Queen Sorsha and presumably King Mad Mardigan. Galadorn, which is the other kingdom, like the good kingdom, it still exists. Like they're still waiting for Elora Danan. Like nobody knows what happened to her. Mad Mardigan allegedly kind of took her in the middle of the night, and we don't know where he is. The setup is fine. I like the fact that we get to meet Mad Mardigan's kids, and that definitely Eric. Like I thought it was funny that that is a connection to the first movie, even though like Mad Mardigan and Eric from the first movie, like they have, I wouldn't go as far to say a friendship, but it's sort of like they have a connection. Like Eric knows Mad Mardigan's like, you could have been great, but you let your vices get the better of you. So I like the connection, even though from a character standpoint, I don't think it's necessarily emotionally justified. It's kind of like,
they got there at the end. They got there at the end.
I just feel like Mad Mardigan doesn't have a whole lot of people in his life. And he's just like, you. Gonna name my son after you.
Who's in the room? Who's in the room? Eric.
I do like that. These are very much Mad Mardigan's kids. Like you definitely see Mad Mardigan in his son, in Eric, and you get that kind of that swordsmanship from Kit as well, but you also get the sense that Kit is more like her mom, is maybe a little more hard edged, even though she might, as Vogel put, has that wanderlust that Madame Mardigan probably had. The introduction of Borman, that was kind of like, I think they had said like he was gonna be like a friend of Mad Mardigan's, and looking at what the age difference, like that was my thought. I was like, oh, he's gonna be a squire, and the fact that Sorsha comes down and does talk to him in the jail cell, it's like, okay, there's a connection there. When we do finally find out that Dove is Elora Danan, like I was kind of doing the math in my head. I'm like, no, wait a second. Like, okay, she was a baby. If Mad Mardigan and Sorsha had kids right away, she'd be like a year and a half older than them, 2 years. I'm like, okay, it kind of works. I guess it kind of works.
We did the math. They say Daniel and I were doing it as we were watching it, because they say 200 moons. And so that puts so like the age of her kids, the age of their kids is a little bit like, well, like Bavmorda was 200 moons. That's about 16, 17 years old. But Kit, and how fast look, Sorsha and Mad Mardigan were definitely hitting it by the end of that movie. So maybe those kids popped out real quick.
Oh my.
But, into the introduction of Willow, that his first scene at the end of that first episode, I actually really liked. I mean, when he's like, you remind me of your mother. I'm like, oh, there's something very sweet and nostalgic here. It's only when you get into that second episode that you get into these flashbacks where they gave him a weird goatee for some.
Oh my god. Hippie Willow is my favorite. He
Like,
showed up.
college-
He showed up in that
college
little
professor Willow.
beanie and that beard, and I was like, I mean, he might as well have just like been playing hacky sack in the courtyard of Tirazleen. Like, I was like, wow.
I mean, his beard when he has the vision, like the beard I buy more than that spirit gum goatee. I was like, I get that you're trying to put him in a different place in time, but it just looks unusual. And even like the scene with him and Sorsha, where he's kind of employing her, like, I need to train her, I need to train her, I need to train her. And then the next scene where he's kind of doing a little leprechaun lurking, he's like, hey, where I come from. It's like, this is an uncomfortable scene. And he's like, I don't care about any of you, the disrespect. And I was like, this is where I think you really see the limits of Warwick Davis's abilities here.
Okay.
Because he has a couple of nice scenes with Dove that I feel like he got more from like his time hanging out with Ricky Gervais. I'm like, you do get some fun kind of comic banter. Like she's talking about the carriage kind of making her queasy, like, well, this is the nature of the beast. I'm like, I don't feel like that was in the script. I feel like Warwick Davis was literally channeling Ricky Gervais there. But the struggle, because I do feel like the setup is solid, even though I don't love the casting of Kit, Eric, and Dove.
We'll swing back to the casting in a minute. I just want to focus on the story.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I feel like the setup is good enough.
To harp on the casting, trust me.
I feel like the setup is good enough, and I think by the second episode it falters a little bit.
Fair enough. And I feel that way too in terms of the setup. I like the setup. I think the characters are introduced in their own way, and they have enough time to establish who they are. Sorry, you know who Kit is, you know who Eric is, you know who Jade is, you know their relationships. Eric with Dove, you get idea of who Dove is, this idea of the highborn, little Game of Thrones action going on there. We see where she ranks in that whole thing. She's a little jealous watching the other the other princesses or the other highborn women there talking to Eric. So you understand the dynamics, and they do a nice job of laying the dynamics out. Sorsha, a bit more of a hard ass, and maybe she has to be because Mad Mardigan's been gone for forever.
Yeah.
So she's had to take a harder role. She's more afraid of what could happen because she's experienced. And her mom, and I think that scene with her and Kit, when she talks to Kit and tells her the truth about the past and all the stuff with her mom, saying that her mom's blood is still in her and in Kit and in Eric. I like that you have this stuff being laid out, that you understand there's dangers around every corner. Even the people who think are heroes might turn evil. And then when we get Valentine, what happens with Ralph Ineson's character, where he does in essence get stabbed by that thing, by the Gales, and slowly becomes evil and is going after Alora and takes her. I like that as this premise, a sense of danger and dread throughout. I think they did a nice job with it. And then bringing Willow in and his dynamic with his daughter, and then having him join this thing, and how he says, I'm only going to go for teacher student, and Alora being part of it. And just like a teenager would, yes, I do it. I'll listen to everything you're saying. It's not working. I don't want to do it anymore. So these are the things that you have to accept as part of this. Yes, it'll frustrate you, but if you've had teenagers or remember being a teenager, you can't depend on consistency in any way, shape, or form with it. So you have to roll with it. And I also think there's consistency, though, in the portrayal of Sorsha and Kit, in that Sorsha telling Willow he'll never be a great sorcerer, even though she was the one that was trying to prove herself as a female warrior, mirrors Kit being like, well, we don't even know if she's Alora or not. I don't believe what Willow said about that, but I believe that he's right about Eric and the Shattered Sea. So I'll conveniently believe what I need to believe in order to get what I want. So there's a consistency in that kind of stuff in terms of laying out the relationships, which I really like. But Michael's right. The execution, though, doesn't always 100% work for me, but I like the setup. So let's swing back to the acting, though. Let's actually take a break real quick because I got to throw in some ads here. We'll be right back right after this. All right. Shannon, here's your platform. Please go ahead. What are your thoughts about the acting over the first two episodes and the casting here with these characters? I think we've already stressed your feelings about Warwick Davis. What about the other actors? Is there anything positive or negative you want to say, or slightly in the middle there you want to say about some of the casting?
Well, there are some positives. I think Erin Kellyman is just reliable. Like she's just a solid performer who's going to deliver a good performance every time. And even though she's not given the most to do out of our main ensemble, what she does have is good. I mean, she just has a screen presence that it's one of those things that's sort of like, it's sort of ineffable. Like she just has it. I also think Tony Revolori. I mean, even though again he doesn't get a ton to do,
Right.
what he does get to do, he's someone, and maybe it's just I don't believe this, but I'm like, maybe it's just we recognize him. Like, hey, there's Grand Budapest Hotel, there's Flash Thompson.
Right.
But Tony Revolori just brings a weight to his performance, and the same with the actor playing Borman, Amar Chadha-Patel. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think the writing is necessarily doing him any favors right now, but the whole action scene, that chase at the beginning where he's saying that ancient Angorian word, I mean, that's such a great, solid comic beat. It's like, it means stop. Like, I don't think the writing's doing him any favor. Like, hey, the three of us need to team up. The two of us need to team up. But he does have a charm. Like, he does have a presence about him. I think the casting kind of falters with the main three young people. With Kit, with Eric, and Dove. You know, and I've heard some people say like, it's just the American accents. Like, they just don't belong. And I'm like, see, I don't agree with that, because I feel like Val Kilmer, very much an American accent in that first movie. He felt like he was still a part of that world, though. Like, I believed him being a part of the world. Eric seems the most kind of displaced.
Okay.
Kit, maybe I'll warm up to her. I mean, she seems just kind of a little one note right now. And Dove, I mean, I think she's probably given the most to do.
Yeah.
But because in just 2 episodes, she's given some pretty big. There's some things being asked of her, like, you know, we want this sort of lovelorn young woman. We want someone who's funny, because you want the thing with, like, you know, butter my muffins. I'm a phenomenal cook. And then by the end, when you get her trying to do this incantation, where she's kind of, you know, hitting the ground, screaming it, I'm like, I just think that the character swings that you need might be a little beyond what this actress is capable of right now. Now, you know, we could get to the end of the series and she might knock it out of the park. Maybe I'm going to look back and be like, nope, everything tracked. But at this point, that's where I feel it's kind of coming up short. And it seems like the main relationship as of right now is going to be Willow and Elora Danan. And when you have two performers that are not the strongest to kind of anchor the show, it can be a detriment.
That's fair enough. And look, people had some issue with Moses Ingram in the first episode of
Obi-Wan
Kenobi. Sorry, and as you saw it as it progressed, certainly became much stronger, had more to do, and you could look at it as a better performance overall. Mike, your thoughts overall on the acting here and the casting in these characters for this series?
I mean, I don't fully agree, but I don't fully disagree with Shannon. I agree that Warwick Davis, and I mean, I love seeing Willow on screen, and I just have very warm feelings towards Warwick Davis as an actor. But I agree, particularly in that second episode when he was hacky sack Willow, you know, you sort of do see some of the limits of his acting where you're like, oh man, I really wish, as you know, like hacky sack Willow into stranger danger Willow is sort of like where you're like, oh God, he's really... These scenes are not great. I think that Shannon is right in his estimation in that, you know, Borman, Jade, and Graydon are the stronger of the fellowship as far as acting goes. But I think that Eric, Kit, and Elora Danan are doing good. I don't think that they are knocking it out of the park per se. Like they probably... Like, I think Borman, to me, comes across the best. I think he's got this great presence. He is charming. He is hot. I think he's the strongest out of all of them. But I think that Elora Danan and Kit particularly are doing what they're supposed to do, and I believe them. So they're not pulling me out of anything. Right. I don't disagree with Shannon that they're not like bowling me over necessarily, but I'm definitely invested and all in on their journeys. Like, I don't think, with the exception of some scenes with Warwick Davis, there was no scenes where I was like, God, this is rough. I was like, yeah, this is decent. This is good.
Yeah, I will say I like what Ruby Cruz is doing. Because she's given a role that's like, I'm mad about the fact that I've been thrust into this situation and I haven't chosen it, and I want to break out. And I think she's conveying that as a teenager. This is what a teenager would do, or a young person might do is rebel against it, have some confusing feelings about it, pick and choose what she wants to believe, and be very adamant about this. But I also think Revolori coming in and dropping these knowledge bombs on Elora Danan near the end there, saying, well, why do you think everyone's mad? Because Kit's jealous, and this other situation Willow really wants. So they know what they're doing. Like, they're having a character say that about characters means like what you're watching, you're valid in feeling this way about these characters. And I thought Ruby Cruz is doing a nice job with Kit. I do agree. Ellie Bambe at times coming up a little bit short, does play the whole funny beats good, the whole anachronistic funny beats well. But there's a little bit of extra emotion that is missing here, a little more depth in the back and forth. And it may just be because Warwick maybe 100% isn't the greatest actor. She's not as motivated to meet him at that level. If you had someone else in this role, maybe there's a little more coming out of Ellie Bambe as an actress to kind of go toe-to-toe with somebody and feeling it. But I agree with you, Shannon. Erin Kellyman, Tony Revolori, Amar, Chadha-Patel. I mean, Borman is my reason to keep watching the show. I love Borman.
Yeah, me too. Woo!
Oh, I'm not trying to objectify him, for God's sake. But I like it, and I like Eric. I mean, I think Dempsey Bryk did a nice job with the limited amount of time he had. I'm kind of perplexed why we don't have scenes of him in the second episode where he's captured and him realizing what's going on and what is this all about, like him waking up to being captured. I'm just confused why we don't have that. But again, it's only 2 episodes in. Maybe down the road it'll feel like it was logical to not show it just yet. But that's where I'm at. And Ralph Ineson coming in as Commander Ballantine, great stuff. Really great stuff. Loved him in The Green Knight. Loved him in other things that he's done. So that voice of his is undeniably good. And so it brings a nice, dare I say, weight and gravitas to this that has a little more grounded nature to it. So overall, and Joanne Whalley, it's always great to see like someone come back after a while. We're seeing that now with Ke Huy Quan. And as we're recording this, he just won Best Supporting Actor for New York Film Critics for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So it's always nice.
Hey.
Yeah, when people come back after a while, it's always nice to remember, they were damn good. And now they're back again to show you how damn good they still are. So overall, maybe in some performances or some moments, the acting overall isn't working, but I get the characters that they're laying out and what they want to do with them. So I'm down with that.
And you gotta give Ruby Cruz some credit as far as having to tell the story of the Princess of Kashmir, where she basically recited the plot of Brave. I was like, she's telling that story. She's like, let me tell you about this princess who fought for her own hand in marriage. And I'm like, is this Brave? It's Brave.
It's almost like that scene in the prequel trilogy. Have you heard the story of Doc? All right, let's take a quick break. We'll jump into some more of the Willow review after this. All right, swing back to you, Michael. So we've got the story. We've talked about the acting. How do you feel about the direction, the pacing of this overall, where it's taking us? And by the time the second episode ends, are you more invested in these storylines or a little more trepidatious than you were right off the bat? Do you like the way they constructed it, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
I do. I like we said, I like the setup of the story. I like this idea that Tirazline and Galadorn have sort of blocked themselves off from the rest of the world, and that there's this barrier, and that there's the big bad magical world beyond. And I think it's all interesting. I think where the direction is.
What about the wand being introduced from the first film in the second episode? Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I mean, when Maz Kanata brings out that case and gives over the lightsaber, I thought it was a great moment. Like, it's great. I love it. It's great. I mean, look, we could talk, and maybe we'll talk at the end. Like, I mean, this is a member berries series for me. Like, anytime anything comes out that is tied to there's Finn Razel's wand. Oh, she just puked on Willow like she did when she was a baby. Like, I'm in for all that. I think that as from a direction standpoint, I think the strength of this show is in the characterization, is in those moments where you see all the dynamics between the characters, and we see very clearly who wants what, who's doing what, like them sitting around a fire, talking, Willow and Elora Danan practicing the magic. I think I feel really comfortable in those scenes. I feel really nice in those scenes. When we get into some of the action sequences, that's where I start to go, all right, this is not the Marvel and Star Wars shows.
Yeah.
You're like that whole attack on the castle where they abduct Eric.
The Gales.
That could have been the moment in that first episode where you're like, fuck man, I am in on this show. And it was much more of like, all right, they got the job done.
Mm-hmm.
I could see what was happening. I got what was going on, but I wasn't like thrilled. Yeah. So I think when it comes to the character stuff, I think they're doing a really nice job. And I love that they're taking the time for us to get to know these characters. They're not rushing through and we're like, wait, who is who? Like I have a really, like we were just saying about the performances, I have a really strong sense of who each character is and how they feel about all the things. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to the sweeping action and making it feel like this epic fantasy, I feel like it's feeling a little bit more TV plus, not movie minus.
Oh, I like that phrase. I'm gonna put that on a shirt. Yeah, what do you think about the construction here for these first 2 episodes, Shannon? I don't mean storylines. I mean how they're going about with the pacing, with the direction, where they're throwing in the action sequences. And as Mike actually alluded to really well, the Gales and the Bone Reavers, we have no background on these forces of antagonism that come in. Yet we're supposed to be invested in the fact that they're trying to run away from them and whatever. So, and then leading, of course, to what we get down in Willow's place, that they're all living underground, and then what happens later with Ballantine. What do you think about how they've constructed the overall setup here? Are there some things missing, or do you like the way they've set it up?
I mean, I think it all makes sense. I think the construction of everything, the way that everything is laid out, totally makes sense. I actually think the cinematography, some of those big, kind of sweeping wide shots, I think those look really, really good.
Yeah, there's a great shot of them rolling across the land, and it's a fantastic shot that you'd see in any classic a fantasy film for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's it shades of what we saw in the film. Definitely Lord of the Rings-esque. I mean those big wide shots with this small party moving across the land. I thought it all looked really good. I don't disagree with Vogel about the action, but it like as it starts, like I like the design of the Gales. I like the 4 different that you've kind of got. You got the brute, whose head is in a cage. You have the kind of sorcerer-like character who can kind of nightcrawler around a little bit. You've got the shapeshifter who, can turn into a giant scary bird. And you've got their kind of ranger character who has this, bladed dual whips, which, I mean, the way that they were sort of introduced, the way that they look, I'm like, oh, those things can do some damage. And when they were wrapped around Sorcha, around Joanne Whalley, I'm like, well, she's dead. But then you see like, oh, she's thrown across, like, oh, that's right. This is a show aimed at maybe a little younger audience. So I think everything that's being laid out, I mean, structurally, everything makes sense. I just think it's some of the minutia that's not that's kind of holding it back. I mean, even like the scene with underground with the Nelwyn. I think, again, structurally, that makes sense. Like, you are getting what you need to get out of this. I think it's, again, some of the performances and some of the writing that might be holding it back.
Is it wrong that I expected thunder, lightning, and rain to show up with the Gales from Big Trouble in Little China? I just
oh my god! I mean, hey, the right era. But no, but I think Shannon makes a really good point. I mean, I think the way he laid out the Gales is really great. Like design wise and idea wise, great. Nightcrawler wizard, dude with crazy whips. Shapeshifter, big brute with a cage on his head for reasons. Like they all 4 of them are really, really cool. And the idea of what they can do is really neat. And this is like one of those moments where plot starts to matter a little bit less. Like you really want a sequence where you're like, I'm going to let these guys go to town. I'm going to really just have this great sequence with these amazing shots where we really show off these characters. And I felt like the whole sequence was, I see what they do. I get it. But I didn't like go, oh my God, oh, that's awesome. Like, we've talked about this with some Marvel shows and some other stuff. Sometimes the action is serviceable. And sometimes you're like, that was, the first thing that comes to mind is the Hawkeye car chase.
Oh yeah.
Like that Hawkeye car chase wasn't the bad guys were chasing them and they got away. Right. That was an extended, let us just show off our action chops. And I wish that with the Gales, because they were such cool ideas, they had shown off their action chops a bit more.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Yeah, the construct of it all, to me, it's all about the issues that I'm having when it comes to the construction is about the differing vibes. We've got shots of Willow crawling amongst dead bodies, and then Laura Dan is thrown up on his body. So it's just weird, these kind of changes and shifts in tone. I guess that's where the construction for me falls apart, in the shifts in tone. I can't quite grasp where we're going in certain moments. Once I'm invested in one tone, all of a sudden it shifts to something completely different. And there's a lot of anachronism in here that I think is a little weird, but I don't know. It may just be that this is the show, and either you like
it's
this
the tone. I mean,
the tone.
You're right. It is. You're not, everything you said is correct. There are wild shifts from like heavy drama to humor. There's a lot of anachronisms, and I'm sitting here just saying that I'm like, yeah, that's the original movie. For better or for worse.
And that may be why it didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, for better or for worse, when Willow came out, it did have these wild swings. You went from these very serious moments to the two brownies, to Kevin Pollak running around being like, I'm going to get drunk on the beer. So, you had these wild swings in tone. Yeah. You had some anachronistic moments, particularly with Val Kilmer. And you sort of like, so when I'm watching Willow, you're right. But as I'm watching it, I'm like, yeah, it kind of feels like Willow.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's totally fair. Well, Shannon, are there anything you talk about the minutia? Before we wrap up, let's talk about any things we've hit on some of the things we didn't like maybe, but what's the minutia stuff that maybe isn't working that you hope they repair as you go along watching these episodes? Because I think, although the three of us may not be agreeing about the show, maybe we are going to continue doing these reviews to kind of see if it gets better. So, what are your thoughts?
We're doing the reviews.
Okay, fine, we're doing the reviews. Okay, Shannon, the minutia.
You're going with me. You boys are going with me on this journey, whether you want to or not. Let's go.
I'm gonna get some Borman cosplay by next week. Go ahead. Yes.
I mean, I'm hopeful for action. I'm hopeful that we have three characters that ostensibly are very, very good with a blade, and like I'm excited to see Borman kick some ass. I love the design of his sword is called the Cleaver. It's just this big giant blade. Like I think the potential there is a lot of fun, and we have seen some shots in the marketing that show that Willow is going to get to show off his battle magic, as he called it. So I mean, I'm hopeful for that, and I'm hopeful that we're going to get a little bit more into the Borman, Jade, Graydon, get to explore those characters a little bit more, because my guess early on,
you have a prediction. What's your prediction here?
Yeah, well, I think Graydon's a bad guy.
Oh, okay.
I think as he was watching Eric,
so you don't think he's making moves on Allura? You think this is an ulterior motive type thing?
No, I think Galadorn has no desire to be united with Tirzleen, and they don't want Allura Dannon to come back. The fact that he kind of seemed very nonplussed at watching Eric battle this monster, and then as he was talking about it later, he didn't want to go on the quest, and his dad whispered something to him, and then as Allura is looking at that magical book, and he's like, if you need some help with that is my guess right now, is that the kingdom of Galadorn has gone bad, and they want both of those kids because that's the blood of Bavmorda. That's my guess. I think they made a very deliberate point in Sorsha saying that, the blood of Bavmorda is in all of us.
Mike, he says nonplussed. Isn't it nonplussed? Are we wrong on this?
I mean, I like the way he said it though, but I might start adopting it, even though I don't know that it's correct.
Nonplussed. It's a U with the two.
I'm happy. Yeah, no, I got it. I get it. I get it.
Mike, your thoughts on some of the stuff that maybe was there anything that didn't 100% work you'd like to see them maybe improve upon over the next few episodes? You hope. Improve upon
I think we've talked a lot about the stuff that we hope they improve on. I think some of the writing is a bit clunky. I'm curious to see Warwick Davis, but I really am enjoying the continuation. I'm a sucker for a hero's journey.
Right.
It's why, Star Wars just gets me in all the right spots. Fellowship of the Rings is great. And this is just taking a little bit of both of them and giving me a whole new story. And I actually really love this mystery. So Mad Mardigan went to go find this Chimerian Kuros armor.
Kuros,
with he and Borman went off to find this armor, and we don't really know what happened. And when Borman came back, he got thrown in prison. But Sorsha still went and talked to him because she trusted him, because she had this relationship, because he was Mad Mardigan's squire. And that's interesting. what Kit's sort of resolution about her relationship with her dad, Kit's resolution with believing in Elora Danan or not, the Kit Jade relation. Like, there's so many great pieces, whether Graydon is bad or not. And then this bigger mystery, like Shannon makes a valid prediction as far as Galadorn kind of not being great anymore and Graydon being a villain, but also, and he's definitely right that they made a point about the blood of Bavmorda, but there's this old crone character.
Yeah.
Is that Bavmorda? Like, is Bavmorda back? Or is this a character that's trying to bring back Bavmorda? There's also the other two magical characters, female characters from Willow that are mentioned are Fin Raziel, who was the sorceress from the first movie, and Sherlindria, who is the fairy princess who gave Willow Fin Raziel's wand so that he could go find her. And so Sorsha says they're both gone. They're both gone after building this barrier. Did they become the barrier? Did Fin Raziel go bad? Is she going to be there's so many possibilities.
Yeah.
And at the center of all of this, Willow was a story, the original, about this little Nelwyn who didn't think that he had what it took to be a sorcerer, and everybody underestimated him, and he ended up bringing down Bavmorda. And now you have Willow as a grown-up, and they've sort of rebooted that story by Sorsha telling him he'll never really be a great sorcerer because he's just this Nelwyn. And now you have Elora Danan, who's supposed to be she's got, I love a story where someone has the pressure on them to be this great, amazing thing, and is like, I don't know what the fuck to do. So there's so much to play with from a character standpoint. And this bigger mystery around Mad Mardigan and the Chimerian Kuros and the old crone and what it's going to be, that it's theirs to lose.
Yeah.
They could, there's plenty of here to play with, and they could either keep building on it week to week and we're like, this is awesome, or by week 4 or 5, we're going to be like, man, this is a slog. It's clear what's happening. Like, I don't know. So it could go either way.
And then I'll be like, Mike, we're finishing this because you made us start it. So we're slogging through the next 5 episodes to finish this thing. But yeah, I agree. I think they've got a wealth of storylines to explore, a wealth of emotional connections to play around with the changing dynamics throughout. Like, just because Kit kissed Jade, it does not mean Jade's necessarily reciprocating those feelings.
Oh, those two in love. Those two in love.
She seemed a bit confused by it. So we'll see how that plays itself out. If that's the thing that ends up, as you said, what's Graydon's angle in all of this? Because he's supposed to be married to Kit. They seem to have connected a little bit more on the journey rather quickly, breaking down that they both hate being told what to do, which is a very modern point of view, but whatever. It works within what they're trying to create. And so, but then he's coming closer to Elora. So what does that mean? What's his ulterior motive there? What's Borman's secret? Kit wants to, she clearly has abandonment issues, which is why she was mad at Jade leaving and why she said, well, I'm going to leave first in essence, because I want to take control of my issues and I'm going to go. And so how is that going to play itself out with Borman as Borman gives her more information about her dad? Is that going to help kind of calm her down, her rebellious spirit? She gets some kind of closure around that. That's going to be interesting. And what's Sorsha's role in all of this as well back there in the castle? Because, her decisions have kind of caused some issues here overall. And certainly her fracture with Willow is something that needs to be mended. How is that going to be mended as we go along? And how is Ballantine taking Elora going, and who's the crone and what's all that? So there's a lot here to explore that at least I'm interested to see what we're going to get. My issues with the shifting tone aside, I'm interested to see what we're going to get. So I agree with you guys. There's a wealth here to explore, and hopefully they do explore it in good ways as the show goes along. All right, well, there you go. That's our spoiler review for Willow season 1, episode 1 and 2. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah.
And any final words you got as we're wrapping up? So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, even though I was not blown away by the first 2 episodes, I'm always happy to watch a nostalgic show with my geek buddies here. It's a lot of fun just getting to chat about this stuff. And I know it sounded like I dogged on it pretty heavily. The moments in episode 2 where we got those flashbacks to the movie filled my heart with nostalgia. So I forget who in the comments said it on one of our live episodes that of the 3 of us, I seem like the sweet one, and I'm actually had the coldest heart. So it's not completely dead. So I'm excited to break it down. I'm excited to break the show down, even though the first 2 episodes did not knock my socks off.
Right on. Mike, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's just what you said. I think, for all of the show's flaws, I think that when you have a show that by the second episode, when you have a show that's based on nostalgia, where by the second episode, we are invested and debating the motivations of all of the brand new characters who we just met 2 episodes ago, that's something they're doing right. And if they can continue to do that part right, it will carry me through, even if the action and other stuff doesn't quite get up to snuff.
Yeah, fair enough. And, we're going to be breaking them down week to week. We're going to be much more incisive. This was a lot of setup, these first 2 episodes. It wasn't as much incisive stuff to get into, but certainly as we go along, episode per episode, we're going to break it down a little more deeper as we go along. All right, that's our review. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media and tell me how you pronounce nonplussed, you can follow me on Twitter at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
Listen, if you like 80s nostalgia, you are living in the right era, and we are here covering all of it. And here's what you guys can do to help us out. Definitely hit that like button below. Leave your comments below. What worked about Willow? What doesn't work about Willow? Where do you think it's going? Who is the old crone? Is Graydon a bad guy? Let us know what you think below. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars, leave us some comments. It helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
That's right. And we're going along with the show, so stick with us. And big shout out to Carbon Health, who continues to power and sponsor us here on the Geek Buddies into 2023. CarbonHealth.com. Go and get checked out today. Virtual care, in-person care. See if there's a clinic near you, or download the app to have a doc in your pocket on the go when these situations arise for you. All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. And we'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review or episode here from the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!